Hi, thanks for checking out the video. Today we're going to be looking at positive and negative numbers and using kind of some game show situations to help with that understanding. So we're going to start with the do now that asks us to label a number line below. As you can see, we have some numbers with a gap in between, and on the other side we have a whole bunch of tick marks with nothing on them. So first, let's look at the right side of the number line to help us figure out what's going on with the left side. So as we know, positive numbers will continue to increase forever in this direction, and we know that because of this little arrow right here on that number line. Same thing's going to happen in the other way, but in the negative direction. So we know negative numbers are going to go here. Now, a common mistake might be to put -1 right here. However, if you look to the right, you see that a space was skipped and then another one before we had 1. So think of 0 kind of as a mirror. So if we have 2 spaces away for 1, we're going to go 2 spaces away for -1. And that's a little sloppy, sorry. And same thing holds true for positive 2. We're going to have to go 1, 2 for -1, and then 1, 2 for -2. Ugh, terrible writing on here. Try to get better at that. And then same thing, follow -3, and then -4 is going to take place over here. -5 is going to be over here. And last but not least, -6. Now, we could stop there, or we could go a little bit more in depth. How about over here? What's in between 0 and 1? Well, we can say 1/2. And that's if I'm writing it in a fraction form. I do have the option of writing its decimal equivalent. If I take 1 and divide it by 2 using long division or a calculator, I'm going to get 0.5. And then in between 1 and 2 would be 1.5, and I could write 1.5, or I could say 1.5, same thing. And we could continue out our number line in that fashion. Now, like I said before, think of 0 kind of as a mirror. So if this is 1/2 right here, just the left of it should be -1/2. And if we continue out in that fashion, we're going to get -1 and 1/2 here, -2, -2.5 here, -3, -3.5 here, and I think you guys get the picture. So the last direction tells us when you're finished, circle 2 numbers that are opposites. Now, there are tons of things that we could do here, but I'm just going to start with 2 that are opposites. If I'm looking at -5, we should know that opposites are the same thing, same distance from 0, but in opposite directions on the number line. So if I'm starting at 0 and I'm going to -5, I start at 0 and I go to +5, and those are opposites. Same thing holds true. I can do +1 and -1. Those ones are also opposites, and I think you guys get the rest. Okay. Yesterday we had done the dish decision with the 2 options, either 250 or option 2, which was taking your pay and doubling it every single day, starting at 1 penny. So you were getting paid 1 penny, 2 pennies, 4 pennies, 8 pennies. And at first, this one looked like the really good option, but if you kept on following that pattern out, you would have gotten at day 15. This is how much you made in 1 day, but if you added up all the other values, you would have gotten 327 and 67 cents. So already at day 15, you're making more money with this method than with this one. And we could have followed that out to at least 28 days. It's the smallest number of days in a month, and we would have gotten into some serious money. So just goes to show you that you need to follow things through and check mathematically to make your best decision. So something we discussed really quickly were number systems. The most basic number system that children start at, and I'm sure you guys did, as did I. We started counting with natural numbers. And natural numbers start at 1, then go to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. To think about when a little baby counts how many toys they have. 1, 2, 3. And then as they get older, or as we get older, the brain develops a little more, and you understand the concept of whole numbers, which is really the same thing as counting numbers, except you understand the concept of zero, not having something. And then what we just discussed in our do now, we have integers, which are positive and negative numbers, whole numbers. We haven't dealt with decimals and fractions yet, and that's where the world of rational numbers comes in. That includes decimals, fractions, positives, negatives. Rational numbers basically include every single number that we're going to be working with in 7th grade. When you get to 8th grade, you'll learn about irrational numbers, but this is all you need to know for right now. Okay, so there's this game called Math Fever, and it's a question game, and if you answer a particular question right, you get those number of points. If you answer a question wrong, you lose those number of points. So automatically, I'm sure a lot of people go, yep, this is Jeopardy, heard of it, I've seen it on TV. Maybe you're not good at the real thing like me, but that's okay. So same idea, answer the question correct, you get those points. Answer it wrong, you lose those points. And we see some contestants from last year, they're all doing pretty well, but sometimes if you're not doing well, you have a red number here and it's a negative number. And we're going to use this idea to think about how positive and negative numbers work. Okay, so we're going to look at 3 teams that are playing each other in Math Fever: Super Brains, Rocket Scientists, and Know-It-Alls. And right now, the Super Brains have negative 300 points, the Rocket Scientists have 150, and the Know-It-Alls have negative 500. So let's think. Who's got the highest score? Who has the lowest score? And explain how you figure this out. Well, if you look at the Super Brains, they have a negative score, Rocket Scientists have a positive score, and the Know-It-Alls have a negative score. So right away, we should think that the Rocket Scientists are in the lead because they have a positive value, so that means they must have done something right. These other guys are in the negatives. So another way to think about this is to, think of a very basic number line. Okay, 0's going to be here, and we're going to have some positive numbers, and 150's over here. If we follow this number line out in the negative direction, we're going to get negative 150. Eventually, we're going to get to negative 300, which is going to be somewhere over here. And if we keep on going, forgive my terrible handwriting, it's hard to do with the touchpad on the computer. If we keep on going, we're going to get to negative 500. So 150, I think we've said, definitely in the highest score. Then if we look here, well, we have 2 negative numbers. Which one's the higher one? And you might be drawn to this one because 500 and 300, 500's bigger, but they're both negatives. This one is closer to being positive, so that makes it a bigger number. So Rocket Scientists are in first place, Super Brains are in second place, and in last place with the lowest overall score would be the Know-It-Alls. And again, a number line really helps demonstrate this point very nicely. If you wanted to see the difference of scores, difference of points between each team, again, we can think of a number line one more time. So if we had the Super Brains at negative 300 here and the Rocket Scientists at 150, how far would you have to go? Well, that's one skip is 100, so that's 100, 200, 300, 400, and then a small skip halfway is 450 points. So there are 450 points in between these 2 teams. Okay, let's check out. Let's check out the Rocket Scientists and the Know-It-Alls. Same idea. We're going to go with negative 500 to 150. So we have 500. then 650, that would make 650. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 50. 650. If we wanted to check out the superbrains and the know-it-alls, we could just check out the number line again. 100 and 200 points. Okay, so we have 200 points there. Let's see, what else? What else do we have? Okay, we'll get into that later. So we have a situation. The superbrains right now are at negative 300 points. Then they got a series of things happened, and we're trying to figure out how many points they have here. So if they're at negative 300, right, and they get 200 points correct, they're moving 200 points closer towards a positive value. So if they're at negative 300, again, number line helps with this idea. Let's call that 1, 2, 3. So they're at negative 300 here. Here's negative 2, negative 1. If they get 200 points correct, that moves them from 300 to negative 200 to negative 100. That's where they are right now. So they're at negative 100. Then they get 150 incorrect. So they're not moving in a positive direction now because they made a mistake. They're losing points. Or subtracting, you can kind of think. So they're going to go in the opposite direction. So they are going to go 150 backwards. And that would put us right here in between negative 200 and negative 300. So you should know that's negative 250 points. And then they got 50 correct. So they're right here. Or let's switch colors here. They're right here now. They got 50 correct. So here's 50. Small skip over. So we're at negative 200 again. And then they got another 50 correct. So then we only 50 here because this was negative 100. Probably should have had that written in. So they're at negative 150 points. Oops. You know what? That's sloppy. Can do a little bit better than that. Not too much better, but good enough. All right. Same thing with the rocket scientists. Same thing with the know-it-alls. Start at the number, work your way. Now would be a great time to put it on pause as I write out the final answers for you. So go ahead and hit pause, work these out, verify, double check your work. Okay, so you should be back. You should check out your scores. Poor know-it-alls, they're having a tough time today. Okay, so we worked on some other problems looking at, again, the math fever situation. And this time, instead of just intuitively looking at the situation, we're writing it out like a number sentence or as a number sentence. So again, we're at negative, and I know it's kind of weird, the negative sign's a little higher up, but that's just how some text writes a negative. So we're at negative 200, and then plus a positive 150. You can think of that as getting 150 correct, and then losing 100. So right here, let's go one at a time. Negative 200 plus 150 gets us closer to 0, and that puts it not all the way, but closer, gets us at negative 50. Then we lost 100 from an already negative 50, and we're going in the negative direction, so we're at negative 150 points. Extremes. 450 they got a 300-point question incorrect. They wound up with 150. You guys know that. You've been doing that for years. The Excels had a 300 points score, but then they lost 450. So you can think of that as they lost 300 points to get to 0, and then they lost another 150 points to get to negative 150. Okay, and the Amazing M's, they were at negative 350 points, then something happened, and then they went to negative 150. So since this was the smaller number, we know that something good happened and they moved in a positive direction. The question is, what happened? Well, let's just kind of brainstorm a little bit. If it was a 100-point question, they'd be at negative 250, so that's not going to do it. They got a 200-point question correct to get to negative 150. Sam forgot to record a score. What happened here? Well, same thing as before. However, we're winding up with something worse than what we started at. So we kind of need to think, it can't be a positive number because that would get us closer to 0. This is farther away from 0. So it must have been a 100-point loss, or plus negative 100 would have gotten us there. Okay. Lastly, let's finish here. Louisa answers a 300-point question correctly and a 400-point question incorrectly. Louisa and Sam use different methods to keep the score. This is how she did it. This is how he did it. They're very similar. They both start with the 300-point question correctly, so they have that in common. The only difference is the 400-point incorrect section, she wrote it as negative 400 to get this. He wrote it as plus a negative 400. So which one is it? Well, if you remember from our discussion in class, they're both right. Louisa mathematically did it correct, so did Sam, just slightly different. Okay, thanks for tuning in. I hope you keep watching. Let me know if there's anything I can do to make these better, or if you have any ideas in general. Thank you.